Hey, this is Ihab, and in this video I am going to go through some of the basics of animation to help you learn how to block your animation, which would be ideal for things like 3D animatic, especially for users who have not done animation before. So even if you haven't touched animation before, I'm just gonna go through that process. Okay, so the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'll just show you the ideal way of importing a character that is rigged. It's not something you can just drag and drop and be happy with, because you know, if you're just doing just one character, that's fine maybe, but the ideal process is that you would import them as a live reference. This way you could be working on the character, and then somebody else could be working on improving the geometry or improving the textures, making the hair and all of these things. So when you reference them in, they're still kind of connected to the live character that is from, you know, the origin of the network. So if somebody modifies it, then you refresh and then it modifies for you. So the first step would be going to File and then Create Reference. In Create Reference, I'm just gonna paste the directory of where the file is, and I'm gonna hit here. And this is my character that I would like to import as a reference. Now here's something that you need to keep in mind. The checkboxes here for the shared reference options are important, especially if you're getting a duplication of the same asset. So I'm going to show you what happens if I just import the same one without really checking these boxes. Okay, so here is my reference, which is the character. And then you can see here there are multiple display layers. Also there are the materials for this guy. So opening the hypershade, you can see these things in red that we cannot, like, I cannot just go and delete, right? It's protected, and that's because it's connected to the reference, which is connected to the live file of that character. Okay, so that's a good thing here that we're seeing these things in red. If you at some point decided that you wanna just have this character imported completely into the file, and you're just sick of the referencing and you want to change some things, like for instance, you cannot just go and, I'm gonna hit Control A, you cannot just go here and say like, I want to delete this. Oh, actually you can. Yeah, so apparently you can. Anyhow, so there are certain things that you cannot just I think you cannot delete geometry. I'm just gonna take the reference off. You cannot just go here and delete, right? Because that is connected to the main file. So this is a way of protection to ensure that, you know, when some of the team members wouldn't accidentally do some horrible things, such as taking the controller here and delete, right? So that's good. So how, you know, to begin with, how do we import this completely so it would no longer be connected to the reference and we can then modify it? You would go into File and then Reference Editor. This is the character that we have. You can just uncheck and then check again. So in a way that's kind of going to refresh it. And then right mouse button, reference, and then here you can have a duplication of that reference, or you can just kind of file and then import object from reference. So once you click that, I'm just gonna have the mouse hovered here, and you can see it sort of, in the beginning it was all red still, but once you hover the mouse it sort of updates. So now I can go and delete those materials if I want. I can select the geometry and delete it if I want, because it's no longer connected to the reference. Okay, now going back to the same process, going into create reference, or if you want, you can this time you can go into reference editor and you can import also the references from here. But I'm gonna go into file and create reference, which is pretty much the same button here, right, that I introduced in the beginning. So you can either click on that, or you can go into file and then import, or if you want, you can use this one. But I want you to go here so we can go to the option box and to show you these groups, right, the reference option. Because now I'm gonna show you the difference between with or without them. So if I go here and say import reference, so I just wanted to kind of show you here that they're unchecked, okay? And you can just click here, reference, and then here's the goon. Here are all the display layers, right? And here are all the materials. Maya is going to assume, as long as those options are not checked that I showed you for the reference, Maya is going to assume that a new character is going to bring new materials and new display layers, unless we tell Maya the otherwise by checking these boxes. So when we check these boxes, we tell Maya that, okay, if you get a character with the same display layer and the same material name, don't duplicate it, right? So if I don't check them here and go into file, create reference, here let's have another goon. Now we have double the amount of the layers and double the amount of the materials for pretty much the same character. And that's a problem because that's messy. So I'm gonna select this one. I can either go right mouse button and then remove reference, click remove, or if you want, you can select this and go into this button here, which is kind of easier, a lot easier actually. So if I go here to add, I'm just gonna go and make sure I would go into the option box, and then if I check these, reference, okay, so I have this character now. I can simply, another way to import it again would be selecting this guy, and you can notice here that the naming, it imported the naming as precisely as if it's the actual file, so it wasn't giving me this extension to the names, which is pretty annoying. I can select whatever I want here. I can just go and duplicate it. It takes a while, so don't freak out, even though this is a relatively light character. You could also select both of them, both of these. You cannot just drag and select this way, so you would have like to go one by one, and you can just select the duplication button. So now we have two more goons, and you can see that they all share the same material, which is awesome. Okay, so let's say you have a crowd of these characters. So the advantage of importing this as a reference is that, let's say you're working on, like I mentioned, like you're working on this and you have a full crowd. So I get to do some animation. In the meantime, somebody who is working on the geometry, who is improving these characters, can just, you know, give me a call and say like, hey, by the way, I finished the model. So I'm gonna I'm just gonna save this, and I'm gonna open the original file in a separate Maya file and show you briefly like what could be the changes, just as an example, and see the effect using the reference. Okay, so let's say I am the actual modeler of this goon and I want to make some changes. I'm not gonna go into the reference because I don't want it to stay alive. I want to change the actual file. Keep in mind that even if I am the modeler, I always keep a backup file. So let's say I make the modifications on the goon. I would keep a separate file and then name it like, you know, work in progress 500, and then the same file, I would name it the goon, because the name is what Maya reads. If I name it the goon 5, then if I go here into the into this file and says like, it says here like goon character, then you know I should name it goon character in order for Maya to actually connect the reference with that character. It has to have the same name that I have sent to the animator. Okay, so that's why it's really important to kind of make my own copy as the modeler here, meaning that open, and here's the goon character. I open the file and I make the changes that I want, and I can say like, okay, so this is the goon 98007, like on September 8, 007, the version 007, and I could make the changes that I want, and then I can make the finalized versions, and I would make a copy of the finalized revisions with the same name that the animator has. This way all I have to do is just to refresh. So let's say I'm gonna go into maybe the chest area. I'm just gonna go to the display layer and uncheck the references. So let's say he's no longer a human and he's a robot, and he's extruded, and he has this kind of like maybe a chamber where the drivers would be able to kind of like drive through the city with that creature. Okay, so let's say I'm happy with this. I can even go and select these faces and then hit Shift period to grow the selection, which is also in edit. And then I'm just gonna apply a new material just to make our changes a bit more obvious. So now he looks like this. Maybe these would be made out of glass. So I'm just gonna hit Control E to extrude and push it in, and Control E again, or G to redo the command. It's now like kind of going in, and then I'm just going to go Shift right mouse button and then extract faces, and then right mouse button, here's the object, right mouse button, go into blend, so it'd be kind of reflective, and then I would go into transparency, so it's like, oh, it's a see-through, we can see the driver from there, oh my god. Okay, so that's now a robot. Okay, I am happy with it. I'll just go and name this 9 September 8008. And you can start like goon, of course, just to kind of make it easier for you, but basically this is the name that I'm looking for now. And save. Now that I have this saved version, I'm gonna, only after you save that safe version, only now you go and overwrite the original file. Save as, yes. Cannot change because, oh, it's so because I think, yeah, it's a different, let me show you here. So we have either Maya ASCII or Maya binary, and this is Maya ASCII, and for some reason it wasn't. Let's see here, try again. Yes. Okay, let's try Maya binary, whatever works for you, Maya. Okay, so sometimes it's just kind of allergic to it shouldn't be doing this. I think it's just kind of a bit ridiculous, but whatever. Anyhow, so now that I changed that original file and overwritten it, technically it's not really overwriting because it's a different format. So when I go here to the animation, this is gonna look for the .ma file. So I wouldn't be able to actually demonstrate exactly how the refreshing is going to be. Like if I go and refresh, you can either refresh by unchecking and checking, or you can, if you want, you can, oh, look at that fun. You can select them, right mouse button, and then you look for refresh or reload. Now it's actually a good thing, because now I can show you what if the name has changed. You know, how can I replace a file with another that just has a different name? So that caused a good problem. I can go into reference, and then I can go into let's see here, replace reference, and then I can decide, you know what, I'm just gonna go with this one. See? So now I can do the same thing here. Select this one, shift select this, and then go into replace. Even though this is a relatively really light character, this process for some reason just takes a bit of a while, and I'm not sure. Maybe replace. G, select and hit G. So now you can see that one change, and we've done it the painful way, or I've done it the painful way, where like I had to replace, right? Just because Maya decided to make this stupid issue of like, you cannot just, you know, save it as a separate, as a certain file format versus, you know, Maya ASCII versus MB, even though they're both Maya. So that's the ridiculous part. But anyhow, even with the painful process, they're now all turned into robots, and they're going to destroy the city. And like, oh my god, it's so scary, there are 4 of them, they're referencing, so that's so unfair. And then you bring in Godzilla, and then you reference more Godzillas, and then you have more problems now. And then you bring the mouse, and then the horse, and the elephant, you know, all, you know the story. Anyways, so that's how referencing, how powerful referencing could be, right? So now you can also imagine if you have like, you know, 4, but still like all of them are functioning on the same layers because of the naming. They all have the same name, so it's really important to be as neat as possible. Anyhow, that's how we get the references. Now it's a matter of making some animation. So I'm gonna start, you know, showing you how the process of the animation that is ideal for blocking should be. Because you could easily be tempted in like, okay, so I can just kind of select a curve here, hit S on the keyboard, and just go here and go and hit S again. So technically that makes that animatic, that animated feature, and it's just really easy. You get some fun stuff sometimes. That's pretty original. Thanks, Maya. All right, he kind of I don't know, he looks like, that's really creepy. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Maya. I have no idea what's happening. It's very weird. Anyhow, so you can go with that approach, and you can make all the animation that you want, but you want to do some blocking instead. We want to eliminate the auto, so the in-betweens doesn't really fill automatically, and instead we go to what is called pose-to-pose animation. Okay, so that's ideal as a transformation from 2D animatic to 3D animatic. Okay. All right, so I have this chair here that I borrowed from my good friend from Sofa, Ray McCarthy-Bourgeon. He created it, and it's been lingering in the courses share for everyone to benefit from. So if you're interested in this chair, it has some really cool features, such as, you know, animating those. You can just select anything that has like channels here. These are called driven keys. This is something that I think I have some tutorials about. you kind of create new features such as the scale, translate, rotate, and then you, with the middle mouse button, you select the channel, and then with the middle mouse button, or you can just go here and just kind of go right and left, right? So so maybe I could just have this character here trying to sit down on that chair, and I believe Ray has scaled it properly for the goon. So that's pretty awesome. Thank you, Ray. If you're watching this, that means I am dead. No, that's the cliche movie stuff. Anyways, this guy needs to kind of sit down. So like this is the beginning posture of everything. I'm just gonna go and take this guy here and push his hand down and then rotate it so he's kind of comfortable. You see, don't try this at home, kids. It's gonna give you carpal tunnel. Anyways, we have here this thing that is called pole vector in rigging that allows you to control the direction of where the elbow is going. It's too much information, Ihab. That's boring. Okay, so the first thing you would need to do is, of course, save, because you want to keep in mind that Maya is such a crasher. So animation blocking tutorial 001 1995. It was rainy outside. All right, so the first thing you need to do after that point is going to this gear chasing a human, kind of a human. You want to go into animation. By default it's on auto. You want to change that into stepped for the lower one, and I think it would be clamped or plateau. I don't really know the difference between them, but we want to be away from the auto. This way, when I go and say like, okay, so action, you're sitting. So the first thing we need to know is like we're animating on 24 frames per second. And if you want to change that, you can go here into the okay, so to change the frame rate, you want to go to the time slider and you want to choose 24 frames per second. And now that we know it's 24 frames per second, we can calculate the timing. So let's say he's gonna be sitting down in like 2 seconds. The first second he's just gonna sit down and with his maybe posture like leaning forward, and then 1 second after he's gonna sort of stretch back. So because we don't really know which keys will be animated, it might be ideal to just kind of select all of the curves and key them, and then whatever we change later we can just keep keying. Now here's a very important thing to learn that could avoid you a lot of issues. So if you don't really know like where the the goal here is that we want to select all the curves for the guy, but without really selecting the curve for anything else. You might have like multiple characters and you just want to select all the curves for this guy, which you may need to regularly do, like select all of them and then hit S or to key the animation and all this. So you look here in the depending on how the character is built, you look for the curves. So for instance, here are the controls. So now it's easy for me to kind of like right mouse button, select the objects. So this is good because I can hit S now, knowing that it's going to key everything here, whether it's here or whether it's here, right? You know, it's like this posture makes me feel like he's kind of, I don't know, he needs to go to the bathroom. Maybe I just kind of like, Yeah, kind of there, right? Anyways, he looks like a grasshopper with his kind of with that color and the segmentation. Anyways, I keep blobbing sometimes for just entertainment. So now that yeah, I have all of the curves here, I can just go forward again. We're animating the first 24 frames for him to be seated, leaning forward. In some cases, you could go to the orthographic view. Okay, so here is the human body, and we can see it as an X-ray. You could also change the background color by clicking Alt-B, so you get to see it a little bit better. You also, for more fun, you can deactivate the wireframe, so you get to see things a bit more clearly. And then he could just be leaning forward. It's like, just like old people like me make these kind of like grandpa sounds when they sit on a chair. Okay, so now let's, I'm gonna ignore the hands. I don't really care. Also, one thing to consider is that you could just go and click on this button here. This is gonna create automatic keying, meaning that whenever I change anything, like you can see here, there is no key. But if I change one more thing after I have clicked this button here, anything I change, it's going to automatically create this button for me. And now you can see it's kind of like stepped, right? It's no longer animated automatically. And that is the ideal way of animating, because later on you can spline those keys in a way that it would remain under your control. So he's now sitting, and you can see he's kind of intersecting with a chair, so that's not good. But the good thing is that we can animate that chair accordingly. So let's see here. We have this. We have the rotation here, which we don't need. We have, hopefully it ducks down. Pulls the lever. Oh, there it is. Oh, interesting. Ray is such a neat guy. Yeah, let's pull this chair backwards. Yeah, so this one here doesn't have, it's not really connected to anything, so maybe I can just kind of animate it separately. Okay, I can actually animate this one here, which is the rocky seat. Oh, this one, there it is. So that's the one that I want. I can animate both of them. So yeah, let's go with that. Undo. Okay, so right now I have this animation here. Again, I want to focus on one thing at a time. It's the character that is kind of leaning forward and sitting down. Okay, and I can later animate this thing here, like just to kind of like move it, like rotate it forward. Okay, actually I can go with this one right away, because once I spline it, it would make sense to move like from the straight posture for the back, the top of the back, to kind of to be arching this way. Okay. I can also like animate this one here, just a tiny bit, so it wouldn't be too awkward or not like a broken back. And you can notice here that I'm completely ignoring the hands, and if you're like OCD, that's like a torture. For me myself, it's like it's very annoying, but for animation you don't have to worry about it, or you need to learn how to ignore it. Okay, so now the animation is like that. Maybe like right before he makes contact with it, I can just make the animation for the chair, but for now I'm just gonna keep it blocky. And as I mentioned before, he's gonna go all the way here back, and then he's going to push his posture back and maybe go lower, and then go and lean backwards. Okay, so here's something that's important that could be missed. I am keying certain keys. After the beginning here, we keyed everything, and then we go in here that I only keyed certain things, and maybe here I keyed only certain things. The problem is that there could be some keys, such as if I want to change the neck, for instance, right? It doesn't have any keys in the middle, as you can see. So the ideal process is the following. You go and key all the postures, right mouse button or all the keys, select objects, hit S, and then when I go here, I select all of them and hit S again. So because this is the stepped mode, you have to do it this way, so you would make sure that there are keys everywhere without missing anything. One thing that could be weird here is the eyes, by the way. So it's like kind of the eyes are like, he's now kind of whatever the term is. Anyways, if you've seen an amazing movie called Guardians of, it's not, no, it's Legend of the Guardians. It's about owls. It is one of my big favorite movies. Amazing, just amazing. So they make this thing for the eyes of the owls and all this. Spoiler alert, anyhow. And now I'm gonna go all the way here, and then I have still everything selected, hit S. So now I would make sure that everything has keys all together. Okay, so now he's stretched out and he's relaxed and he's working on his layers and effects assignment for his favorite professor. Anyone but me. And now I can just go and, just to make it easier on my eyes, please just kind of do this. So it's now like that, like this, and maybe he's doing this. Anyhow, of course you wanna, the pole vector that I mentioned, you wanna go with this one and move the elbow down. So that gives you an example. Same thing here. Of course, you can copy animation keys if you want to. If that is ever needed, you can do that by, let's say, the key that is here that you really like. You can just simply right mouse button and then key or copy, sorry. And then you go to a similar object, and let's say you want to paste it here. If that works for this, right mouse button, hit paste, and then paste. Don't do that here because it's gonna ruin things. This would be ideal if you have two characters that they have the same thing here, or the same placement of this thing, or the naming and everything. So it's like not the type of thing. So if you have two characters and you want to copy the animation of, transfer the animation from like the position or the elbow, then you copy and paste, then in that case it works. So now this is my animation, and this is how you do it for blocking. Okay, now I can go into the graph editor. So I would go here into for views, panels, the graph editor. If you want, you can just do it this way. So you can have this, or if you want, you can go panels and tear off copy. So you would have your own copy of it, and then here you would just have that main screen. This is the thing that animators love to have on a separate screen because they get to monitor the animation really nicely. Sorry, it's the end of the day. My voice is wearing off, and I sound like a grinding machine or a garbage disposal. So I'm going to go and select all of those keys, select objects, and now you can see that the keys here are like kind of the map of the traffic in New York City. It's all messed up, right? So you can select the keys that you want to just kind of start easing, right? And then you could look into these keys here that says like, you know, what it does to the tangents. So I'm gonna go with let's say this one here, plateau. I'm just gonna go with this one, or auto tangent. Yeah, so I'll go with this one. So now let's see what's gonna happen when I play the animation. See, it's kind of like smoothed out. If you play auto and you make some changes, sometimes like it works really nice, and then you make one little change and it just messes up everything. So now you're in control throughout the time here, right? And now he's going to kind of lean backwards. Okay, so the animation right now is looking like this, right? Hit play. Another important thing I want to mention is that right mouse button, play speed, and you want to put it on either real time or play every frame, max real time. So as close as possible to real time, but play every frame. Make sure you don't miss anything. So that's how the animation is right now. And what I need to do is to go and spline those keys. So here's the graph editor. I'm gonna select all the keys, right mouse button, select objects. So now I have all the keys, and shortcuts you need to know definitely about the graph editor is that Alt Shift right mouse button and push to the right and left. It's going to squeeze those keys this way in the horizontal direction. Alt Shift and then right mouse button and then push up and down. These are very, 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 very important. So if I want to go here and go into this button here to kind of like to spline those keys, I can also select this one, go and spline those keys, and then select these ones and spline. So you may be thinking like, why am I just splining them all without really like kind of like I could have just put it on auto. Well, I mean, in some cases you would just need to kind of be specific, especially when it comes to modification that you could be doing in the middle of the animation. So it's better to specifically or selectively choose which keys to be splined or smoothed out. So now the animation is like this now. And you can see it's all even, so I'm not like adding where like he sits down and just kind of like I'm just playing what the motion is going to be. So one thing that I can do is, and here's something where it's probably going to show you the importance of keeping control over the keys. I would like to have this posture to linger for a few more frames. So the same way I showed, right mouse button, copy, and this is a good opportunity to show you how effective the copying is. And I'm gonna go here and say right mouse button and paste. So technically I have the same keys here and here, but notice what happens in between because of that splining, because of those tangents and curves of the animation, right? It's kind of like shaking now. What I want to do is to go there, select these and make them like so. Or maybe I could make them in a way that is like just want to make sure that whatever happens here is just going to be like kind of no motion of some sort, right? So I would select on this one here. So now it's just gonna maintain the posture the way it is without filling in any animation, right? So you can see here like it's kind of flattened. Now let's see the effect of that. See? So now with that added, you can see like more emphasis on that character, right? So let's say this is a good animation, I can also like, you know, add like the bells and whistles of like the elbows or the head tilt or the feet or the postures, you know. Now you get a better idea of, you know, how much the labor goes into that aspect of like everything. And also like the hierarchy, like for instance, we're leading with the hip, so we prioritize the hip first, and then after we make that animation, then everything follows and whatsoever. And then like maybe the eye could do some kind of rolling or, you know, blinking, or maybe the mouth would be, you know, stuff like that, where like, especially if he's like old as me, for instance, he does these kind of weird stuff where like, you know, he's like sitting and sort of maybe looking, and then maybe like he's kind of putting his hands here. But with that animation there like in mind, let's say I'm happy with it, I'm just gonna start now with the chair. So I'm gonna select all of these things, which are the driven keys, attributes, right mouse button, key selected, right? I would also select this and make sure hit S, so it keys also that curve here, the master controller, so it would also key the translate, the rotation, and all these things, just to be safe. So now the guy is gonna be here. Maybe around here. I would like it to be super precise. So if I want to go, this is also important, if I want to go frame by frame in Maya, you hit Alt and period or comma. So this is good for me. I am just gonna go and key these guys, select key, and then he's going to go and sit all the way like this. So in this case, for me, I am going to look into, we have, I think this, come on, rotate, roll, seat, yeah. So it could just kind of follow his weight, right? So it would be like this. And remember that it's stepped, so it's not really splined, it's not auto. And then he would just be applying some weight. Also before that, just for exaggeration, I'm just gonna go and take the back. What's happening here? Oh, yeah. I'm just gonna make it like this, just so I can have more room for exaggeration. And I'm gonna copy this. Actually, I'm just gonna make it -4. So when I go here, I'll also make it -4, just to make sure it's okay. So it's -4, and hit enter, so it keys, just to make sure that it's the same posture for the back of the seat. And now I'm looking for also the up and down. I think that was this one here, yeah. So I would just slightly and gently just push it down just a tiny bit. Okay, and now he is applying some more weight. So if he's not making changes like here, I would make sure I would select all of these guys, key selected, because nothing is changing. So I want to record the unchanged features. So as of now, there are little changes. So I'm gonna right mouse button, key selected, and then finally make those little tiny adjustments that are taking place here. So for instance, I would just kind of push it down to express the weight, but I also want to rock the seat in a way that is kind of responding. Okay, and the back seat is so far is looking good. So I want to make sure, again, I select these, right mouse button, key selected, right mouse button, key selected, just to make sure that all the features are keyed at the same time. And now we get this kind of extreme motion. I don't need to think about this yet, because the base is what is the most important, because the change of the full chair is going to change the position of the back seat, or the back of the seat, whatever the name is. And now I'm gonna push the lower down. I think the emphasis is supposed to be on the rolling of the seat, like this. And now a little bit further, a little bit further, and then roll. Okay, I'm happy with that. And then finally we have the well, I animated that, so I don't have to worry about it. Rotate seat, and I think this is the one that needs to change now. Okay, and making sure that they're all keyed, right mouse button, key. Now here's the major mistake that I've been doing so far. Control Shift S. Remember that Maya is a terrible human being, and it loves to crash on you at the worst times. So now that I have all those keys and features for that chair, something you need to keep in mind that these attributes, you can see like I'm clicking on them and I'm not getting a different animation keys. That's because they are here. So even if you select the curve, you're only gonna get access to the chair curves. And I haven't really changed the position of the chair, so I don't have really to worry about splining it, but rather instead what I care about is going into these features and making their splining the animation. So if I go here and spline them one by one, I can go towards the end and spline. I think I can just go and spline them all and get this kind of goofy stuff. This is one of the issues that you get when you go with auto. I'm gonna go with this one. It's like going to the candy shop. I would like to have this one and that one. So let's see what kind of animation we have with this button here that says clamped tangents. So you can notice here that the back of the chair is like, why is it going forward again? It's like kind of weird, right? Because I didn't key it in the beginning. So I'm gonna go and what is the feature that is pushing this piece forward? Let's see, it's this one. So it's named rock chair back. So I go here, rock chair back, select this key and delete. It no longer has animation on it. And now this is the animation that I have. In some cases, if he pierces through, that's not really a good thing. You just select, and in between those two keys, you just fill in the blank to make it adapt. And of course, you want to make sure that you have that kind of splined properly. And lastly, it is ideal to have your keys to not have the tangent ever piercing through the curve. So in this case, it's safe. The tangent of the animation is not really going crazy, but I can just kind of make it a bit more smooth and organic. So you can see the tangent is not piercing through that curve, so it's safe. Same here. All right, so let's take a look here at what we have. Right, and I can simply have the hands put on his thigh and whatsoever, but now you can see even how that pause that I had here was kind of effective for making that movement. Anyhow, so this is my tutorial for you guys for the class of layers and effects. Hopefully this gives you a nice and kind of relaxing intro into the animation, and this is pretty much all you need to know for the purpose of the assignment of pre-visualization. The better the animation, the better the final result of the Pre-Viz. But remember, as I mentioned in the guidelines, the Pre-Viz is not about showing off your animation skills. It's rather about showing the director how the movie could turn out, right? So don't stress about the animation, but of course, better animation have better expression of the action. And lastly, I'm just gonna leave you with one more thing, just if you just one last push for making the animation more efficient. You notice that we have created a lot of keys, and in some cases, like, all of these are not actually needed, right? Is there a way that we can manually go and clean those? There is, but sometimes the mistakes that it could produce could take some more digging. So I'm just gonna show you one thing here. If I select the goon character that has a lot of keys on it, select objects. So again, this is like all the controllers here. So although we have had some animation on the chest, some animation on the hands, and nothing on the feet, nothing on, for instance, the eyes and whatsoever, and all of this is data. All of that is stored. When we hit S and key everything, that's not exactly a good idea. So you can see here that we have a lot of things that just kind of go from beginning to end with just the same key. So for that reason, what we could do is edit, delete by type, and then we want to delete static channels. And you would notice that we have a lot less keys now, even though it's playing the same way. It's just that we got rid of anything that doesn't have animation on it. Alright, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know what you think, and let me know if you would like me to do some other sort of tutorials related to animation, especially if it helps you on your Pre-Viz. Okay?